Right, go for it.
All right, going live now. Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the festival again. Here it is. We're still in the same room as we were yesterday because we have no other rooms. This is it. This is the extent of the Short Sounds Film Festival this year. We got an absolute treat in store for you this evening. We have created a reunion of our film professionals, our sound film professionals panel from last year to discuss all things pandemic post-production working and pandemic working and get a general feel for how they've all handled the last 12 months. So we're going to pick directly up from where we were last year. So I'm Dan, festival director. I've got Guy Dowsett in the room with me, sound recordist, composer, sound designer. I've got Steve Rafter, head of Bournemouth University's TV production course and sound designer, Bomo Audio. And then I've got Ben Cozens of Dustless Digital. And the only member of the band we're currently missing is sound recordist, feature film sound recordist, Glen, but I'm sure he'll pop up at some point. For those that were in attendance last year. So anyhow, this is the gang we've got for you at the moment, and we're going to have a general chit chat. We're going to see where the wind takes us, but we're going to kick off by getting a recap from our three sound working professionals on how things have gone over the course of the last 12 months. So we're effectively coming up to the start of COVID, aren't we? We're coming up to COVID's debut in terms of anniversaries.
It was right on the cusp of the lockdown.
I think this time last year was the first time the word COVID was starting to float through people's consciousness.
Yeah. I remember Glen telling me that his upcoming gig had been cancelled, and I was shocked. I started to think, wow, it might actually make it over to the UK.
I remember that was the first time I heard, coronavirus as a, was at the festival.
At the fest.
Yeah. Right. People were talking about, the impact. Was it the something in China, the Olympics or something? Was it sporting?
The Olympics in Japan.
Japan, yeah. So people were talking about cancelling that, and that was like I was kind of, what is this thing? No way. Yeah. Don't believe you.
Nah, it's just another one of those.
We've got festival manager and producer extraordinaire Adam Merrifield in the corner of our venue here, and I remember him saying at the festival, "You watch this COVID thing. It's gonna be a big one," and everybody was sort of laughing him off, and he was like, "You watch this space. This is gonna have a big impact on us." So and everybody was in party mode and being like, "Yeah, whatever, Adam."
Adam's fault then, is it?
I'm blaming it exclusively on Adam, Ben.
We should always listen to Adam then.
What's the next one, Adam?
Yeah, what's the next one? Yeah, prophesize the next COVID, Adam. Yeah?
No, please.
We need to get him involved in this conversation, really, but I know he's more than happy analysing the YouTube comment section. Anyhow, boys, let's get back onto subject whilst we wait for Glen to arrive. Let's kick off with Ben Cozens. How's it all gone down since we last saw you? So literally, it would have almost been a year to the day since we last saw you.
Yeah.
What has gone down in the world of Ben Cozens and Dustless Digital?
Well, I've kept myself really busy actually because I decided to go back more into the music side of things, and so I set up, I suppose, like a label really, and I've been releasing tracks as a duo with a singer. And so I went back down the music production route, and really that plus kind of, I call it like feeding the monsters, where you're just doing things like for companies like Taxi, which if anybody who's listening doesn't know, is like a music placement sort of thing, and doing sound effects libraries and things like that. So really keeping the wheels turning on across the board for sound design, music production, so that I'm doing it every day. But also trying to, like I say, just getting whatever you can coming in by doing these things that are always available to most people like us, things like sound effects libraries and music intros and whatever they ask for in the listings, really. So the music's been the biggest part, and Yeah, I've been enjoying it really. Back in the studio every day with my singer, guitarists, socially distanced, sort of sending people files to work with, and it's okay. You can do it, can't you? If you work in a studio, you can do it.
Ben, what kind of sound effects library kind of projects are you doing? What is it like kind of ambiences outside or smashing up a fridge, or what kind of?
Okay, well, it's one of the people I've been doing some stuff for is a company called It Music, which is an American-based thing. They're a placement company, so they will give you. It's quite sort of open-ended. They'll say we need neutral sound effects. So they give you a list like subsuites, whoosh hits, that sort of thing. So you begin to make up things based on your knowledge of the industry, and they want stuff which is ready to go out, ready to roll, straight onto trailers, straight onto game trailers and YouTube adverts.
Right. Okay.
So use your imagination, but it's also good to do it if you're thinking of building up your libraries, as you know, you tell your students.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You're only as good as your library. That's
it. You got it.
That age-old adage, Steve.
Yeah,
Rafter, yeah.
I told him that on Tuesday.
Yeah, and to just keep recording. Yeah, I've said it before at Short Sound in talking. Grab the Tascam or the Zoom, whatever you've got, and record things and build up your own libraries and just keep that ball rolling so that you're never out of stuff to do.
Ben, I don't know if you recall, you were here last year when Ray was here, weren't you? The same day that Ray Beckett was here, and Ray said that we had him on again for this year's festival to do a talk on sound recording and also how he goes about building up his own libraries and stuff. And he said last year, I remember him specifically saying, I'm packing it in, I'm going off just to build up my own personal libraries. I'm going to Outer Mongolia and I'm just going to focus on building my own library of sound effects. And then this year we were like, right, so Ray, how did Mongolia go? How's retirement going? He's like, yeah, no, I didn't retire. I haven't done any of that.
I know he's been recording things in Scotland and Newcastle and things like that, weather and rain and stuff. And actually, since Short Sounds, I've kept in touch with him a lot because he's helped me sort of locate when I need certain mics and things like that. He's such an amazing expert on recording that it's brilliant to pick his brains. But yeah, he's just carrying on. Well, you never stop here. Why would you?
He's actually seemed more active this year than he did the previous year.
Well, it's kind of a weird thing, isn't it? It's quite with all the terrible stuff that's going on. The first lockdown, London was absolutely quiet. So if you wanted to go and record something and get an ambience of a space, it's actually kind of one of those weird plus points of this terrible year that we've had is that you can go out and record ambiences without any sort of interference and stuff like that.
That's a really good point. I've been recording in my garden a lot, putting microphones in hedges and things like that. And birdsong has been so much clearer with the die down of traffic and things like that. As you know,
I remember at some point doing that, and where it used to be the traffic that would drive me insane. I remember getting really upset that now I could hear the pitter patter of runners' feet.
Yeah.
You should just playing all your sound effects of traffic, heavy traffic, like wear headphones playing traffic.
To immerse you in what the world used to sound like.
Sound design real life, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put on 2019 sound effects.
Yeah, listen to the sound of polluting 2019. Yeah. Get you back in the mood for life.
Exactly.
So Ben, are you talking about doing multi-channel recording for these weather events or whatever? When you were picking Ray's brain, because he uses an awful lot of channels with some of his recordings, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, and sometimes he sends over lists that I say, well, I have no idea what you're talking about, and B, I can't afford that. So sometimes I just sort of step back and move along to just more simple recordings that I'm used to. But yeah, the stuff I've been asking him about is is for the next film that I'm doing with Ari in New York.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about this because you gave us a very specific timeline on where you were at last year, so it'd be good to pick up on this.
That's obviously crumbled miserably. But yeah, just keeping abreast of the sound and stuff. What we're doing now is we're concentrating on a 3-minute trailer rather than the feature, in order to just really punch across what we're capable of. And so I've been seeking Ray's advice for recording actually a jogger, so footfall and breathing and things like that, so for somebody personally running through the street. And he's given me some wonderful advice on the equipment I need to at least hire. And it will be a learning curve for me. I don't work like yourselves as a recordist very much. So, you know, the extent of my recording is to take several mics out and place them in a field or an environment and capture the things I need. But this will be more detailed. For
those who don't know, Ben was sound designer and composer on the Blues Crab. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
So Blues Crab was the fantastic animated CGI movie that played at the festival last year, and it picked up a couple of awards, didn't it? I think.
I think it was a couple of years ago.
Oh, was it the year? Was it the year prior? It picked up a couple of the awards. I can't remember specifically which ones, but it did really well. It's fantastic. I mean, it's like Pixar level quality, but it's been put together in this incredible model of independent professionals working remotely around the world as opposed to being centralized. That's right, Ben, isn't it?
That is right. That's the model that's moved us forward to the next one, Small Blue Shadow, which is even bigger team. And actually, you'll have heard on the news recently that Disney bought out Blue Sky Studios.
That's Ari's studio.
That's Ari's studio that he's been working at for 15 years, and they've just literally been bought out, which is, of course, is devastating for everyone that works there. And the Disney monster is sort of gobbling up everything again. But it means that it's released a lot of workers, and so we've actually got a lot of Blue Sky guys now working on the film, which is obviously upping the game again, which is fantastic news.
Did some of them then say that now that the company's owned by Disney, they weren't interested? So was that part of the...
As I understand it, and I don't want to say too much, but I don't think they had much choice, Dan, to be honest.
Right. Disney came in and started swinging the axe around.
Swinging the mighty hammer, and that was it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well. Oh yeah, we've got Glen here.
Good.
Otherwise known as Louise Yard. Based on his avatar, Glen Yard. Here he is. Glen Yard.
Glen, are you frozen, or is that just how you look?
I've had a brain aneurysm trying to get into this thing.
Sorry to bring it up. Very insensitive of me.
This call nearly killed him. Breaking into this space nearly killed him.
Sorry, so I'm late. I can't be bothered to change my name either, so that's...
We're all going to pretend you're Glen. We're all going to pretend you're Glen, Louise.
Sorry.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Adam's. Well, we don't need to talk about this, do we?
We can talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's go into the glory mechanics that are going on underneath the bonnet right now with Adam Merrifield sitting in the corner here doing all the techno jargon.
Does that mean no one's watching if you want to talk about my admin?
Well, actually, but before we do, I've just noticed on the chat there's a few Bournemouth Uni students there. I'd just like to say hello. There's a couple of master students, a couple of BATV students. So thanks for joining us. Hello.
Fantastic. You know, this is how else would you want to spend a Friday night? Yeah. Coming towards the end of a pandemic, you know, this is literally the pinnacle of what you can achieve on a Friday night, I'd say. Yeah.
I think we're looking forward to this for a long time.
Guy Dowsett's had this in the calendar for months. Like, yeah. Anyway, it's lovely to have you here, Glen. We've basically just been circulating around, recapping where we left off from the panel, which would have been like to the day this time last year when we had you on the, you know, in Pavilion Dance Cinema talking about, you know, freelance life and you know, the things that you get up to on a weekly and monthly basis. So we've just been recapping basically on the last 12 months. We've done Ben, so we might as well do you. So Glen Yard, the last 12 months.
That so if it was a year to the day, I've never felt so popular at the drinks afterwards. They're all young men coming up to me to talk to me. Young men don't usually want to talk to me. That was good.
Well, you had lots of interesting things to say about being a sound recordist on an indie film set, Glenn.
Yeah, you said that, like in the bump, you said that, like, you know, I don't really work on features really. I'm sort of, you know, if I'm setting out my stall, I'm very much sort of corporate commercial. These days, Glenn.
But you have worked on plenty, you know, over the years.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that's true. So what? Yeah. Oh, so things have been. I don't know really. Where have you sort of? Do you want to start from the start? I mean, because I do like a lot of corporate commercial stuff. Sort of the bottom fell out of that quite quickly. It's sort of, I guess, the industry's kind of sort of changed. You know, keeps changing in terms of what's starting up and what's like right at the start. So, well, yeah, because I was doing in sort of March last year. I was supposed to be in like Geneva doing motor shows and stuff like that, and that so a load of that stuff just disappeared really early on. So you knew that stuff was, you know, so that's end of February, start of March. So that was already starting to disappear even then, even before we'd gone into lockdown and all that kind of stuff. But like, I guess the TV shows and the feature films, which I don't really have anything to do with, they're such big lumbering beasts. They were all kind of shut down. But I think like as it got into like before the second lockdown in the summer and those kind of things, because they need to keep making those big TV series and those big films, they've sort of got back up and running, and they are going and still going. And so I think sort of contrastingly at the start of, so I was surprised I got bits and bobs in sort of May and June, and that was sort of small corporate stuff, but that was all COVID related stuff for like different brands and franchises and stuff like that. So I think the industry is kind of working for what it needs. So if it doesn't need to do something, I mean, this might not be entirely true, but like if it needs to do something, it will do it. But if it doesn't really need to do it, it won't. So like early days, I think those little bits of corporate stuff were popping up because companies needed to do those little COVID things and make sure people would still come to Screwfix and fun places like that. Whereas as it's gone on, I think companies are like, well, we don't need to think about that stuff too much at the moment. We've put out those kind of things that we're still alive and we're still working, but they're kind of not of the highest priority. Whereas the big films and the big TV series and stuff like that, you know, they have to keep going. Otherwise, you know, you'll have, you know, it doesn't really matter, does it? But like, you'll have like a year where there's nothing.
A fallow year.
So it kind of goes up and down. So I've been starting to do, you know, sort of maybe after or maybe during the second lockdown, because stuff was still going on. I think that's the good thing about sort of the higher budgeted stuff. Like, so the commercial stuff I've been working on is that all the COVID stuff is very robust in terms of testing and temperature checks and all those kind of things. So I think those things with more money in them, they can sort of justify a little bit, you know, spending a bit more time on it, or, you know, buying those. So I think that was on the other day, you know, you're wearing a certain quality of mask and you have to change them sort of every 3 to 4 hours. So, you know, each, you know, there's, you know, like 30, 40 people on the crew, and so just those kind of expenses.
You have to change your mask every couple of hours.
Yeah, I can't remember it's a certain, you know, kind of, you know, it's a face mask, but it's a particular kind. And part of their sort of mitigations for, you know, their COVID stuff is that you have to have a new mask every sort of 3 to 4 hours. So I was just thinking, like,
the idea that you're breathing fire into it and it's slowly going to evaporate.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think those things that have got the budget to do them, they sort of carry on doing them because they can afford to put in those things and put in the testing and stuff like that. Whereas smaller corporate stuff and maybe documentary stuff, which is a bit more sort of loose, isn't going on at the moment, or they don't have the money to put those kind of things in. So you're wearing the mask on set. I don't mind it because you don't have to. It's a nice, it kind of removes you another step, so you don't have to just continuously, you know, smile at people, you can just stand lifeless in the corner and no one really questions it. Whereas before mask, if you stood there like a mannequin in the corner not talking to anyone, they'd be like, what's the matter with this guy? But
it's great for Glen because he can disguise his disinterest in everything far easier than he could before.
But then you've got to do eyes. Everything's eyes, so it's like eyes.
Have you been practicing your eyes, Glen? Have you been practicing your mask eyes?
Big eyes. But because I wear glasses, as I've got some fantastic anti-fog wipes. They've changed my life. But mask, glasses, headphones, it's basically like wearing a helmet. So when you're on set, it's like I can't be bothered to take, because once the mask on, I have to kind of wedge the glasses on, and then they're kind of held on by headphones. So it's like, I'm not talking to anyone today. I'm just gonna stand in the corner and raise my eyebrows occasionally.
Were you gonna ask him something?
That was way back.
I know.
But,
yeah, go on.
Well, I think a lot of us have started chewing mints a lot more often since.
Yeah,
it's
mints.
These are getting worse. There's a lot of sweets getting eaten.
Well, it's funny you should say that.
I got to notice something.
I was on a thing, and they had
and other things, Ben, and other things beneath the mask. Yeah.
I was on this thing, and they had these really nice. I guess they were like vegan-y, but they were kind of like these really tangy, like sausage roll things. And they were really nice, and like no one was touching them, and I was just milling about, so I had loads of them. And like, I wearing the mask was like, it was horrendous. Like the
garlic,
the bounce back from the sausage rolls. Personally, was like, it was hard to take.
This is alien to me to hear you talking like this because I haven't had to go out with my line of work with all these other people.
Yeah,
the only time I have to wear a mask is to go to Tesco's, really. But
well, it's strange. Like I do like I flip flop between post and location stuff. So like over the past couple of months, I've been doing audiobook stuff and all, bits and bobs of cleanup and things like that. And I've even been doing I'll do anything anyone throws at me. But I've been in the past couple of weeks, I've been doing subtitling for checking subtitles and stuff like that. So I've been at home not wearing it. But then going on to working at home for a period of time, doing audiobooks and going through all that stuff. And then going on to a set of 30, 40, 50 people. And it is a strange contrast. And previously when you were going up to London sort of every week or every couple of weeks to only do it sort of every maybe once a month, maybe for a few days, it is strange. You kind of forget a little bit what it's like to sort of be doing that back and forth, and you kind of get used to hanging about at home a little bit. And yeah, it's a nice change.
What's the biggest job any of you have had get pulled in the last 12 months at the 11th hour, or has anybody had something that's literally been stopped the day before? You go on, Steve.
I had an ITV job for something that was quite good. That maybe somebody local got it actually. Glen, I'm looking at you. But and it was all to do with having the contributor come to the studio in lockdown, vulnerable person over a certain age, so he was unable to come into it. It wouldn't have looked good for him to come into the studio. So
was it an actor or like a documentary contributor? Or?
No, it's a well-known celebrity.
Oh, okay.
So and unfortunately that got pulled, but the program got made anyway.
Right.
So they found
without him in it.
No, with him in it. So they found a way around it. So they I think they shoved a microphone through his letterbox, and he did it that way. So whereas I'd worked on a previous series of this, and he'd come to the studio to do it, but I wasn't in a position to go around and that's a nightmare trying to record voiceover, sync to picture. In someone's front room where you've got no control over it is a bit of a problem. So I didn't want to do that at all.
Glen's ears are absolutely pricking up at the thought of getting a job which involved sticking a rifle mic for a letterbox.
But it straddles my future aspirations to be a postman, so I can still do a bit of sound, but be a postman as well.
Oh, brilliant! Go on, Steve.
I'm just aware that there might be questions in the chat.
Let's have some questions.
Are we monitoring those?
Let's have some questions.
You know, we can talk about future aspirations.
What have we got? What have we got?
Have there been any new unexpected skills you've learned or utilised whilst working remotely?
Oh, okay. Shall we go around the houses here? So, new skills that you've picked up whilst working in these new crazy times. Ben Cozens, have you added any strings to your bow this year?
Yeah, every day. Every day.
Okay, that's a great answer.
Really, every day, because I would say that anyway, because of whatever you do every day, you learn a bit more. But because I've had this sort of concentrated silence, I've had less traffic outside the studio. I've had, the silence in which to work and concentrate and study the things that I want to create. Then yes, I've improved my production skill. I've improved my mixing skill. I've improved my mastering and creation. So yeah, I absolutely. It's a good question.
Guy Dowsett?
Well, I don't want to sound less positive than that, but some of the work I've been getting has been fixing dubious recordings, which is nothing new. But I think the tolerance for what actually goes has really changed since COVID.
What do you mean?
So especially some of the podcast style interviews that someone will just record themselves on a laptop, like right next to the washing machine.
Well, it's like this. It's like this.
And that's okay. And they sit and like this.
This used to be, we used to have a certain standard of what a live broadcast used to look like. Yeah. Now it's people in their front rooms and whatnot, just doing it with whatever tech they've got available to them. So it's sort of that, yeah.
Well, I spent a lot of time
polishing
this kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
There's been some excellent glitching sound effects from all of this. All of the Zoom calls that are failing and stuff. I've just gleaned loads of stuff like that. So yeah, that's one positive out of Zoom calls.
A whole new palette of digital distortion.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Garbling and stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Go on, Glen Yard. Go on.
Well, I was going to say to Ben, have you had anything where people have wanted you to make it sound like Zoom and have those glitches, and have you had to run anything like clean stuff through it to make it, sort of worldalize it? That could.
I've been doing a podcast for the whole of lockdown, and to begin with, I was a bit like Guy. I was horrified at what I was listening to. I can't work with this. This is two people zooming each other in another country to another country and sending it to me in this country, and the sound was horrific. And I said, well, you can't work like this. You need to send each other professional microphones. And then after a while, I just thought, well, that's just the way it is. People are going to listen to it regardless. And so as long as it isn't piercing their ears, and I think
the content is the content is king, isn't it? Kind of thing. Like
they're listening to the conversation.
Especially with like podcasts and stuff like that. There's so much stuff out there. I guess if people want to listen to the thing, if it's a specific subject, then people will listen to it sort of regardless of.
Yeah, it's true.
I had these MP3s come from India that were in a tiled room, I guess, with a road right outside.
Brilliant.
Can you do anything with this?
Well, I can hear where you live.
I would say that, like, so for the actual film festival program this year, we must have received a couple of hundred submissions, and obviously there was a lot of Zoom based or pandemic films that had been created by people with whatever resources they got available to them, and I'm a big champion of that. I definitely go out, be creative, find ways to use whatever tech you've got available to you. But I would say, and there is a couple of films in this year's program that are sort of COVID films that have been sort of made about COVID or have been in a lockdown context, but where films have still been dodgy on the sound or visual side of things, regardless of how good the writing is, I've still found it a bit distracting. I've been like, it's taken me out of it. It is taking me out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, like with a lot of the student work, because I mean, the thing I've been busy doing is, production's gone down. So I haven't been as busy this year, like everyone else, because of production. But I've been really busy, kind of trying to run 2 courses at BU and get the students through and stuff. So it's really had a massive impact on their productions as well, obviously, because they're learning sound design and TV as well as other stuff. But the thing that we've seen is that sound is actually a real, it just highlights how much sound is the glue that holds a production together. Yeah. So if you can get, like good quality sound recording over, like you can still like Source Connect or something, which is like an ISDN sort of replacement thing, bit like Zoom, bit like Skype, but better quality. Then you've got your story almost, and then you can use archive footage or be quite creative and use still images or whatever. It really sort of opens it up, and then just add some sound design to it, music, and you've still got a story. Whereas,
exactly.
It's you can just kind of be a bit more. I don't know.
I would actually go as far as to say that, like, I'm more allowing of, especially in the context of making films with what resources you've got available to you and being creative, like you say, Steve, in terms of you're making shorts or you're making something which is contained within a room or within a space that you've got available to you. I'd even go as far as to say that I'm more forgiving of you being creative and being maybe a bit, malnourished on the visual side of things. Yeah. I get the sound working for that story than the other way around. I've found someone's got a decent camera available to them and they've gone and shot themselves and they've done something decent, but then there's absolutely no treatment of the sound, and I've found that it's completely taken me out of what I'm watching. Whereas if someone's trying to do something creative where it's almost a screen-based film, and there's like the clicking around, but the sound effects are all there, and it's like quite creative, juicy, sort of tech-based sound effects. I'm like, oh, okay, it feels real. It feels like they've punctuated everything correctly.
Yeah.
Well, it might say film behind you, Dan, but it is a short sounds film festival, so you've got to have it right, haven't you?
Well, I mean but as a general rule of thumb, if a film has had the sound, if somebody's thought about the sound, then it's going to be a decent film. Like, it's going to be solid. Like, as a general rule of thumb, if the sound has been considered, the film will be of a certain standard. And 9 times out of 10, a bad film has bad sound.
That's true. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
How many of the shorts in the festival this year were actually made during, the past 12 months, or some that were made in the previous year that are now getting into festivals? So you can see the gap between those.
You could see it. And I would say one of the biggest patterns in terms of films submitted to the festival this year, it wasn't so much that you could quite easily tell that these were films made, during lockdown or during pandemic life in 2020, and these were films that were made prior. It was the geography. It was the geography of where films were coming from, and we got many more films proportionally from outside of the UK and the US than we've ever had done before, and other continents as well that we maybe not necessarily would have seen so many from. We got a lot from Asia, and we got some African, some South American, but UK and US was next to nothing. And that was one of the biggest patterns that we noticed. And I think that was because, I don't know, maybe we were slightly more conservative in the way in which we thought about creativity in the pandemic, and we kind of, maybe our lockdowns were harsher because I don't know specifically what it is culturally, but our approach and our creative output was a lot less than the rest of the world during the pandemic, based on what I could see in the program.
We're just waiting for it to stop, I guess.
What, the pandemic? I mean, there's still going to be, I would imagine that will still carry over into next year's to a certain extent, but there was quite clearly the films that were from the UK and the US had quite clearly been made out of lockdown circumstances. I mean, I think most people who tried to make a decent, well-funded short film in the UK last year found it almost impossible. I know for a fact the amount of shorts that either started and stopped or didn't get off the ground, regardless of the fact that they had, decent budgets behind them, just because filmmakers and the producers couldn't take the risk on, one person getting COVID and having to shut the production down and never getting that crew and that cast back a couple of weeks after everybody's isolated. Adam's saying we've got more questions.
There's loads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to stop talking and start answering.
We need to stop talking. Yeah.
If relevant, can you give advice on starting out with either location, sound recording, or podcasting? I brought multiple questions together. So if graduate students are starting out on how do they get into location, sound recording, or how do you get into podcast recording podcasts?
How do you get into? Well, let's start with location.
Guy does podcasts.
No.
Let's start with location sound, and then we'll move into they're very different. There's very different areas, but the question is, you should give us the names. You should give us the names of the questions as well. So location sound. So like Glen.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation right now for people that are thinking about becoming sound recordists? Like in the current climate, where do you start?
There's still opportunities. I think Ben saying building on his skill set continuously. It's like, work has sort of dropped off and ebbed and flowed and stuff like that. But the amount of things that I've been able to sort of involve myself in terms of sound Zoom groups and stuff like that, mass Zooms, and ones in America with location recordists and post people, and being able to sort of get into those.
Well, you got into John Roche's exclusive Foley artist. John Roche's the Foley guy behind Star Wars, the Avengers, all of that kind of craziness.
Yeah, so those kind of things, that's definitely sort of been a positive, and you still see opportunities, you're right, there aren't as many shorts and bits and bobs, but you still see, only this week there was a thing, something's because is it the Isle of Man or the Isle of Scilly, they're COVID free, and there's some big production starting up on that island, whichever island it is, and they're looking for trainees and stuff like that, and that's like a big feature shoot, or it's a long going shoot, and they're looking for trainees in every department. So if you're looking in the right places, or on those kind of groups and things like that, there's still lots of bits and bobs floating about. But obviously there's less for there's all I guess these people, it's always growing, isn't it? There's always more people coming out of university and more, so if I was starting out now, it would be even when I started out, it can take a long time to build your contacts, but I did that through short films and sort of low budget features and stuff like that. And if that's not really happening at the moment, then that's going to take it's just going to take longer.
But you do use these sound recordist Facebook groups that are sort of private. They're private, and there's a lot of opportunities. Yeah,
there's a few closed ones, and and there's lots of. I don't want to
said that.
Before I get struck off. But there's still stuff out. But it would be if I came out of college now. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be if you're looking to, if people are looking to make some sort of living wage, because for years I didn't. I was doing other things, did loads of different jobs before it. And that was way pre. It was closer to the bubonic plague than this current plague. That's how long ago it was. But it does take time. There's a student that graduated last year, and he occasionally hires bits of kit off me and stuff like that. And if I ever see a studio or something like that with or a kit room or something sort of opening up, or if I see something, I always pass it their way, just because there are little nuggets out there. But I guess it's just knowing where to look for them.
I think that also feeds into Andre's question about, do you hunt for projects, or do they come to you as a result of reputation and networking?
Well, Steve, you can probably answer that in the context of all of these TV ads you've picked up this year.
Yeah, I've been sweeping.
Steve's absolutely quids in off the back of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's me and Amazon. are the success stories of.
Yeah, on a par. Yeah.
No, okay. One of the plus sides was, well, it was a really unusual situation, wasn't it? Because everyone was sitting at home watching telly, but nobody could buy any of the stuff that the advertisers normally sell to you. So like cars, holidays, all that kind of stuff, all the big sort of ticket items. So what happened was that everybody was looking at TV and there was nothing to pay for it because there was no advertising. So all of the kind of ITV, Channel 4, all the Channel 5, all the advertising departments were kind of phoning up trying to sell space, doing like cheaper deals and stuff, doing packaged deals, chasing companies that wouldn't necessarily have a budget to kind of run a TV ad, like it's really expensive stuff. So they were doing deals and that kind of stuff. So that meant that ads weren't really being made by kind of established agencies as much for a very specific period. And so it might have been a marketing department within a bigger company would then kind of make a 30-second TV spot. But so they'd kind of cut it all together. It might be, all sort of using their own employees or whatever it is, Well,
it comes back to what you were saying about the quality of stuff turning up and who's putting it together.
Yeah. I mean, but you might not notice the difference because there'd be, I mean, we're not talking like a corner shop. We're talking, bigger budgets, but still not kind of national TV broadcast, budgets. So the problem was that they could cut it visually and everything would look fine, but it's a bit harder to kind of get it through the tech specs of a UK broadcaster. So if you've just got Adobe or whatever, or you've got like Creative Cloud or whatever, so you can do it, of course. But if you're not kind of set up like a proper studio or whatever, you run the risk of it being knocked back. So I found that there were a few ads. I mean, it wasn't loads, Dan, but I found that I was kind of being called in to do, like, we've got this TV spot, can you get it through, can you give it a mix and do a bit of sound design on it and get it kind of, or record the VO or whatever, and just get it, get the technical specifications, broadcast quality, So I did pick up a few sort of national broadcast ad campaigns and sponsorship and that kind of stuff, which I may not have normally had. The other upside, while we're on it, on a positive, is for me anyway, was that actors weren't sort of going to London and stuff. So they might live fairly local, or easier to come to Bournemouth than it would be to go to London and go into Soho and do an ADR session. So I've been working remotely for years. Like, I do a lot of stuff. Even when I worked in the Middle East, I used to kind of run ADR sessions with like UK talent, but I'd run it over Source Connect or ISDN or all that kind of stuff for clients who are also remote. So I'm quite used to working remotely, and it just meant that we could do more of it, really. So I got to work on bigger stuff that I wouldn't normally do, I suppose.
It's your experience, Steve, in answer to old mate's question. It's your experience and the word of mouth that's got you the recent work.
Well, some of that, but some of it is just like phoning up and like going, oh my God, we need a studio that's in Bournemouth.
Yeah, we need someone regional. All of a sudden there's an emphasis on needing somebody geographically based somewhere for obvious reasons.
And I'm terrible at sort of doing, getting my website, I do, and all that kind of stuff out there and all that. I'm really bad at doing my own marketing. But somehow I got found by, like last week I did a voiceover for Channel 4 program, just because the talent was local, and they've been quite, she'd been going to Southampton and stuff, and didn't know I was here really. And then a producer just called me up out of the blue, and hopefully, the session went really well. Hopefully there'll be more work there.
Who was that? Was that Sue Pollard?
Yeah, Sue Pollard. All my work. I'm basically Sue Pollard's go-to guy because of all the work she does right now. So
she's full on, isn't she?
Is he? It's her year.
The podcast question. Before that, Adam, we should get up the Bomo Audio website, Dusters Digital, and we should put it in the comments so people can see the guys' presences. So they can see the context of this. But the podcast question.
And Glen's
website. You've pivoted in doing quite a lot of podcasts.
How did I get? What was the question? How do you get that?
Well, one of them was A, how did you start? How did you get the work? And B, have you seen an influx in podcasts? I mean, there has been. There's no doubt about it. There's
more people are doing podcasts, but they are people who already knew me.
And you have the studio set up here in the office.
I have a recording booth, and some people knew, and so they got in touch with me because of that. So I'm just thinking about if I was starting out, it's the same old story, isn't it? You just have to get involved, work for free maybe, but just try and get people to think of you when they think about sound. So when it comes to thinking about sound, they only think you. I guess that's not Glen, not Steve.
Annoy people, right, guy?
Hey?
Just annoy people until they give you a job. I mean,
I think if you find people that you like working with, and it is going to happen eventually if you stay doing it, then just make sure you give that project all you got, and then that's
absolutely.
I think all of the people I work with that I consider good clients or friends or whatever, it's all been that, pretty much always been that. So it takes time.
Has anyone got a great case study of somebody that they've worked with, that, as a student, or worked on something that was just a really small passion project that's then come really good for them financially, in terms of that person's then gone on to get a really big gig and they've got you involved, or they've ended up referring you to somebody that's been really significant?
It's never happened. I've always backed the wrong horses.
Steve's a serial loser.
Yeah, you heard it here first. I don't know. It's difficult when you start out because it's there's always that promise of we'll pay you on the next film, or all that kind of stuff. And you've got to just sort of choose a project if you can get something out of it yourself. So it doesn't have to be money. One time I got paid in sound effects. That was quite good.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I thought that was great because it was you get a credit, and you get a load of sound effects that you bung in the library. So that's really good. And it was just the fact that they said, you're not going to work for nothing. They felt like they had to give me something, and they couldn't afford to pay me. So they could give me what they could afford. But that probably didn't answer the question. So no, I didn't. I've never backed to.
Right. I was at uni with a couple of guys who I did uni late in life, but when I was there and the guys were younger than me, I was there with a couple of guys who've now gone on to do some pretty excellent things. So it's definitely worth making a connection with the people that are right next to you on your shoulder. One of the guys that I sat next to at the uni is now a director at the Cloud Emporium Games, and then another lad went on to do the themes for Legoland as you walk in, and these are just kids who are sitting there with their headphones on, playing on the keyboards, and that for me highlighted the importance of making a connection with these people so that you can speak to them. I spoke to Sam last week, the guy at Cloud Emporium, and just keeping in touch with people, because you don't know when something's going to pop up that they can ask your help with. That's as good as I can answer that, to be honest.
No, that's good. It's legit. I've had similar things with people I went to university with, and they're just drinking buddies, just mates, and you form that camaraderie. And I've got similar situation, Ben, and I've got mates that gone on to do incredibly crazy things. Or one Francis Annan, who we did a talk for the festival. He's gone on to direct his feature with Daniel Radcliffe, Escape from Pretoria, and he was someone I knew from uni, and it's exactly that.
There was the thing, Steve, I mentioned this in the first talk I did. Whenever it was, this business of the cross-pollination between departments, and if you've got a sound department there and you've got the animation department next to you, or the film department, the guys on the camera, it's so important to try and forge a relationship with one or a few of them, so that down the line, our mate's become a cameraman, and he said, "Oh, I know a sound guy." And there it is. A few years.
Yeah, stop hanging out with other musos. And
absolutely.
Camera guys.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Do a video editing course.
Deny all friend requests from sound people. And just go for film.
No, I mean it's true. I mean, I suppose the thing I should caveat what I said with also, it's good to learn those skills to keep in touch with people and keep don't be a dick, basically, is the phrase from one of my colleagues. It's one of the rules. Just don't annoy people, don't be nice to work with, and then you'll get remembered. And if you're like doing that for everyone, then something's going to come your way. People are going to remember you. No one's going to remember the people that would, no one's going to want to voluntarily work with people who were difficult. So
unless you're Glen Yard and they really want that stoicism on set.
Oh yeah, I mean, but he's got that covered. So that's like.
Well, anything of length, I feel like I'm very great. Like on Dan's film, I felt like I was very grumpy for like 3 weeks. I think only when I can see the end at the light of the tunnel, I think it's all in my own head. I think I'm fine.
No, it's a playful stoicism. It's a fun stoicism. Glenn,
I think everyone's right. Location sound is very much you're not high-fiving the director. No, the sound person. So you're a cog. You're an important cog, but I see it as doing the thing that I'm supposed to do and making it easy for them. So it's the sound isn't a problem for anyone else except for me, and so the easier you make it for everyone else, that's how you get the same thing. You get called back. It's like, oh, that was easy, no problems, no trouble. That's how you get.
It's the least kind of route of resistance, isn't it? I'll just call him again because it was fine. He worked well. Rather than
he was fine.
Else. Yeah, he was just fine.
He was a normal average man, and he succeeded.
Absolutely acceptable.
That guy with the helmet in the corner.
Well, we got any other questions, Ed?
Yeah.
We've got more questions. We've got more questions, guys.
Yeah. James has got my don't be a dick. Is Wes Nolan, a colleague of mine who's moved on to another university.
Yeah, that's his.
He coined that.
What we got? What we got?
Credit to
let's do, how do you? Oh, we've done that. How would you say the best way to continuously improve yourself?
Oh, okay. This is a broad one. Yeah. How do we go about continuously improving ourselves? Let's refocus that as well. Over the course of the last 12 months, has there been anything specific that you've just said, do you know what? Like, because it happened to me, and I know it's happened to loads of people, and it came up in a lot of the guest talks we've done this year, of like one thing that somebody went, do you know what? Now's the time to get better at that. Or do you know what? Now's the time to do that. He's been teaching me piano, and like that, related and unrelated. But it was like one of those things that I never thought about just sitting down and properly getting into. And then I just thought, do you know what? To hell with it. I'm going to do that. I've had some other things specifically for me as a filmmaker that I've done a lot of research into specific styles of writing. But yeah, has anybody had anything specific that they went right? When March hit last year, it was like, okay, now I'm going to focus some time into getting better at this. And let's just talk a little bit about personal development and personal growth and kind of how you measure that. People. We'll start with Ben Cozens.
I definitely found a lot of focus, especially in that first lockdown when it was like, what? You really can't go out. Okay, you're in. That's it. So it was concentrated, and I thought, well, that's it. You're not going anywhere. You've got to carry on. So I started to pick a different composer every day and listen to their work. I'd listen to when I woke up, and I'd listen to the last thing at night, and then I would just try and hear their style that they would be developing, particularly from my point of view of the mix that was going on, the blending of perhaps orchestral and electronic, and to just hear what it was that was their significant style. So picking a composer every day for me has been incredible, to be honest. You know, the people that you hear on the big films and the telly, and you think, I wish I was as good as that type of a feeling. So if you want to be as good as that, then listen to the person you want to be as good at, study them inside out.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we had Rupert Gregson-Williams on, composer for Wonder Woman and Aquaman and some of the some huge Marvel DC movies. But one of his exact pieces of advice was, it was more of a lesson that he'd learned, and what fuels his personal growth, which was be as eclectic as possible and never find yourself even over the course of a week, never find yourself stuck listening to one thing over and over again. And he said that right now at the moment he's listening to Australian Aboriginal music, and he was like, but it's just a way of just continuously educating your palate and just continuously educating your ears. And he said that it was one of the lessons that he learned from when when he was starting out, that the more eclectic his palate, the stronger he's going to be in terms of what he puts out. Would you relate to that?
Yeah. I mean, what, just didgeridoo and chanting?
He was saying some form of Aboriginal music. The first stuff that had been consigned to actual records or something. He named a couple of other things that he was listening to as well, but he did mention that that day, I think he was like, I've been listening to this today. I think he had a project set in Australia as well, which is kind of part of the context for it. But yeah, it was a broader conversation. Like he said, when he came to do his talk a couple of years ago, he mentioned, when I was a kid, I thought the only person that existed was Frank Zappa, and then he said, I realized that my musical palette was just way too narrow, and then I challenged myself to go out and just learn everything about just to go and experience a bit of everything. And it came up again in the conversation.
Well, we have a 10-year-old at home, and so I'm forced to listen to some of her music fairly often. And increasingly, I'm liking it. So
which might be.
You can find something you like in a lot of.
But interestingly, Guy, see that music that you're being forced to listen to. Recently, I had the same sort of thing. Is that I'm thinking, you're doing that sort of I'm getting older thing where you go, I can't stand listening to that awful noise. And then you think, well, actually, that's the noise that's earning a lot of money at the moment. So let's learn how to do that as well. And, as you say, just broaden.
Or even if I find this in terms of just watching films, and this is something I need to get better at, and I'm challenging myself. I don't know if it's applicable to you guys, but we've obviously all watched so many films over the course of the last 12 months because it's one of the easiest ways to fill your time. And I probably am guilty of not watching enough films, regardless of the fact I'm a filmmaker and I should apply the same philosophy. But I'm forcing myself to watch films I wouldn't normally watch, or films that sit outside of my comfort zone, or that aren't particularly renowned for being any good, just to understand what's popular about them, just to understand why, what is the part of it that people are interested in, as opposed to just continuously watching something for myself, putting myself in somebody else's perspective and being like, okay, well, I don't necessarily watch tons of Marvel stuff, but what are the common parts, or what are the elements that make this successful? Like just to tickle my taste buds in that respect.
Yeah, enormous compression would be one of them. Smashing the hell out of sounds, putting them on the track. No, it's true, Dan. I agree with that. Just broaden it out, watch as much as you can, listen to as much as you can, and you definitely pick up on something along the way. And you say, I like the sound of that, and you pursue it. Plus, you can, today where you can spend it's not cheap, but you can buy really decent plugins. You can buy really decent musical packages, so you can have orchestras in your room. You don't have to, years ago that would have been impossible. You'd either had a really bad sounding MIDI, or you would have had to go and find someone who could play the strings and things. So there's a lot more options now, and that's a joyous thing for people like us, I think.
Glen Yard, how have you personally developed over the last 12 months, or have you not? Have you?
My back's got hairier.
I knew it was coming.
Well, I think early doors, when I think the first sort of month or so, there was a palatable sort of sense of something going on. That's when I was sort of involving myself more in those kind of groups and reading more, and kind of like, because it felt like something was going on. It felt a bit special at the start, like, this things have kind of I think I'd like to say I was sort of broadening my horizons, but I'm not really. I kind of watch the same things over and over again.
What was
I watched the Brady Bunch film at like 2:00 in the morning the other day. I watched a lot of I really like, there's loads of good stuff on Sky Arts and Sky Documentaries and BBC4. I've been watching a lot more documentary stuff, not on purpose, but just I guess I've been watching less narrative stuff and more factual stuff, but not through any particular thinking, just kind of like, I don't know.
But so you obviously put me in touch with John Roche, who runs the Foley Artist Facebook page. For those who don't know about it, there's this, it's called Foley Artist Facebook page. John Roche is the head of Foley at Skywalker Sound, he's been doing these monthly Zoom calls.
Well, weekly. He's a he's a super nice guy, and it's open to anyone really. If you join the Foley Artists, it used to be quite a basic, page on Facebook, and then suddenly last year it kind of sprang alive, and he's kind of taken it. But it's not just him. There's a few sort of heads of the group, and they do weeks. So there's another one on like every Sunday. But like for the first 6 months, it was like twice a week, and because he's not necessarily well connected, but he's just had a long career and he's worked with lots of people, and they're not all Oscar winners and stuff like that. They've worked on because I guess he's still working, but a lot of his friends that are sort of re-recording mixes and double mixes and stuff like that, their sort of heyday was in like the 90s, late 90s. So they get loads of people talking about films that don't really get talked about from a sound perspective. So they had there's the guy who mixed Executive Decision, and you get a whole hour about Executive Decision. And but there's it's still good, but you get the sound recordist who worked on The Abyss, and so it's it's a Facebook group. You just have to join, and then they put a link up every week, and it's all comers welcome. It's it's a good listen every week. I don't do it every week, but has there
been anyone? So I spoke to John after you put me in touch, and he was going to be a part of the festival, but he's pretty swamped because I think he's become the Zoom king of sound, and he's sort of getting dragged around all over the place. But has there been one thing that you picked up from that Zoom call that stuck with you, or something new that you sort of an anecdote or anything?
I don't know off the top of my head really. There's always lots of little good nuggets. They have UK based people. Well, that's the great thing about it. It's a global thing, and they have people from Tokyo and Australia and all sorts of people sort of joining in. I don't know really.
We'll leave it with you, Glen.
What about The Abyss was all underwater, wasn't it? It was all
well, I guess because of the the depth that they filmed some of that stuff, and even in the tanks and things like that. And obviously, it's late 80s, early 90s, and so in terms of radios and radio frequencies and radio mics and stuff like that. So everything was hardwired. So every shot you see underwater that isn't a big old wide shot, they'd have all these massive wires trailing out of them to sort of do the mics and the helmet and stuff like that. But yeah, there's loads of good stuff. I don't know really. But yeah, it's well worth. I mean, for anyone watching, it's well worth joining and getting in. And they have people who make sure they're not all named people. Sometimes they throw in a few curveballs. So they recently had some guy based in the UK, I can't remember the names, but some brothers that made a short film in the UK, and they just talk about the sound element. So it's a good Yeah,
it's solid. It's solid.
I did like that Bee Gees documentary. That was good though, wasn't it? And I watched one about Roy Orbison the other night. That poor man.
Oh man.
Oh God. Oh Roy.
What he went through.
What have we got, Adam? Have we got any more questions? Have we got anything specific?
Video games. How do you get into sound for
Oh,
video
okay. Well, I know Steve Rafter's done a few video games, and I know you were starting to pick up on more game stuff pre-COVID.
Well, yeah, more not so much games, more VR. So, which is kind of like using a game engine, so mainly like Unity. So similar.
But you were doing a lot of strategy games and mobile stuff when you're doing the sound effects for stuff. I remember you.
I did.
showing me something.
There was one thing that didn't kind of it sort of happened, and then it kind of fizzled out, and then it like the thing with games is like low end game, low budget stuff, is that they can take years to kind of put together, so they can fizzle out.
The VR stuff was cool though. We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the things about lockdown, I suppose, is like VR. It's and games and animation. It's all kind of COVID secure in a sense, isn't it? So I suppose that's one of the things I've been gearing towards. Is I mean it's a research interest of mine, sound design for VR, and I did something for the National Trust recently about a mine.
Oh yeah. This is why are you being so bashful about this?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where it's at. I don't know where it's at in terms.
Oh, it's not available. It's not available out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's basically like a mine. So if you go to the mine and it's all underground, so you can't really go under there and experience it. So you go there, experience it above ground, and then you put a VR headset on, and then you explore it underground, where it's all nice and safe, without actually having to go under a mine or go in a mine. So that's kind of the idea.
I mean, there's obviously tons of crossover from a post sound perspective.
Yeah, I mean the big thing though, I mean Jack's kind of asking about getting into the industry and.
I have something to say about that. Just
yeah.
Because a friend of mine from uni has done quite well doing that, and I guess the thing I would say is he stopped hanging out with us, and he hung out with all the games people, and he got right into games and playing games all the time. Where I wasn't that into games, so I was kind of a fraud when it came time to, say, yeah, I'd like to do music for games. I think they want to. They want people who know who are really into it. And
I think that's it.
You can't just come there as a composer and say, yeah, I think I might want to do some video games.
It's also about the programs, isn't it? Things like Wise, Unity, Unreal.
There's that as well.
You got to learn that business. It's all very well making sounds well enough, but to be able to put them into the engine itself and learn a whole new program, that's important to whoever's asking. I think, is it Jack, Steve?
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to learn those engines inside out so that you're familiar and then you can apply. If you're good at sound and you're good at those engines, then
I always see like video game stuff popping up. It's it is an expanded. There's lots of bits and bobs and like strange little pockets. There's stuff in Brighton. There's lots in Leamington Spa, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff.
I worked with a company in Leamington Spa doing the Danger Mouse games on the BBC. And there are these pockets, and we were discussing how there's the film pockets and so forth in Bournemouth and things like that. And it's all about learning those programs. They were very keen that you knew these things, Wise and Unity,
and it's also like a little bit further than that. It's also learning a bit of coding. I mean, you need to. It's a bit like kind of working in film and not understanding how editing works. You need to know those kind of basics, that those kind of principles, I suppose. So it certainly doesn't do any harm to learn a bit of kind of coding language, even if you're not going to be using it that much day in day out. But you can talk language to the people who are using it. So there does seem to be a lot of opportunities in the industry.
It's a huge. I mean, it's a huge growth sector. Full stop.
There's a guy that I went to, the arts college, arts university, when I was back there, called Rob Blake, and he did very well. I think he worked at somewhere in Leamington Spa. He ended up in Montreal, like, I don't know if it's Ubisoft or something like that, but like did all like the Mass Effect. You should get him on next year. He's a proper person. But like he did all Mass Effect and all that kind of stuff. He did very well out of it.
As a sound designer?
Yeah. Or I think he ended up as like head of audio on it.
Oh wow.
He was very nice.
Yeah, I mean, get him on. He's a proper guy. Get him on.
The Mass Effect franchise is massive, isn't it? I mean, it's been they're into the fourth game now. It's like span 2 decades.
I had an interview at Frontier Games in Cambridge, like in 2008, and it went not great. I ended up just talking about Jet Set Willy the whole time, and I didn't
I did something very similar in Leamington Spa, but yeah, we won't go there. I said, I'm a gamer. I love Sonic the Hedgehog. It's fantastic. You know, like, wow. I think we moved on a bit from there.
Okay, all right. We've chewed the cud for an hour. I reckon we should probably. People seem to still be interested, so maybe we'll crack on for another 20 odd minutes or so.
We're losing a few, but
Steve's keeping count. Steve's keeping count on the traction.
It's weird, every time Glen says something, we lose 2.
Oh, really?
No, I'm joking.
No, but the quality of person goes up, Glen. Yeah.
When we're down to 1-to-1, we should probably call it.
Yeah, we'll call it a day then. We'll call it. We'll get back to Friday night proper then. Right, boys. Let's get into some gory stuff. Yeah. So like biggest negatives over the course of the last 12 months, or biggest pain in the arse, biggest pain. I know you were gonna sound record, you were going to boom op for him a couple of weeks ago, and then some sort of crew restructuring meant that you got booted or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Like,
I didn't ask too many questions.
But like
probably stopped me from getting COVID.
Well, it was a call by the. I mean, I think it was truthful. I don't think it was them just trying to cut corners, but I think it was. It was a tight location. It was in a house. It was 2 rooms in location. And
was it commercial? Was it commercial?
Yeah, it was a commercial. So you should have an assistant, really, and like but yeah. So the first AD kind of made a call on it and kind of cut each department by a person if they could, and because it was relatively simple, it was I talked to them about it and I was like, okay, I don't mind. This was
COVID anxiety feeding in. Glen.
I wanted to stay in a travel lodge with a guy in Cricklewood for 2 nights, but
that was the real tragedy.
Okay.
But I can understand why they made that call. I mean, but
what changed that meant, from a COVID anxiety perspective, what changed that meant they were pushing forward to a big crew and then all of a sudden made a very last minute decision to?
Well, obviously it wasn't camera crew that got whittled down, but like every other sort of department got whittled down to 1. It was just, I think it was like we're filming in like a sort of old, sort of quite tight corridored sort of old Victorian house, and there just wasn't much room to move, and so department wise, and they just kind of thought it was better to sort of rein it back a little bit. And I mean, it was fine, and like you could kind of it was tight in there, and like everyone's that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone's there for a reason, but like it always seems like when you're actually filming, there's just like millions of people milling about in big puffy jackets crossing their arms all the time. And it's like, so let's get rid of some of those people. I'm all for that. Less people.
Glen's up for a cull at the best of times. Okay.
So I get why they did it, but it is a shame.
What other any other general pains in the rear area as a result of COVID?
Yeah, the fact that we should all be now in a bar together after the film festival.
We should, Ben. We should be at the festival Friday night party right now.
In the stables or something, wasn't it? But it's the business of, it's the human. What makes people human is meeting other humans, being with other humans. That's the worst thing by far and away about all of this, is that we can't be together in the same room, talk, chat with people, go and meet up with somebody for a potential new job. It's that's it for me. Just the people missing the people.
We had James Harrison, Paul Greengrass, Steve McQueen's sound designer, sound editor, and we asked him the same question, and he was just like not being able to sit with the director. He was like not being able to sit with the guy you're making the project for. Like he was like you can do so much over Zoom, but he was like, but not 90% of this industry is the relationships and working with people you want to work with, and when you can't actually sit and work with them and look them in the eye and have a joke and get rid of that awkwardness, it's a massive loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Steve Rafter, biggest. And
Yeah,
we could say in and outside of university life, because for obvious reasons there's plenty of horror in university life right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that stuff. I suppose the thing is, it kind of depends where you're at with kids and stuff, and like, if they're school age and the schools are closed, then that, I think the biggest thing is kind of time management, and because I've been really busy with the university stuff, so it's kind of hard when you got the kids at home as well, and you can't spend time with them. It's not like you're kind of doing fun stuff with them all day. It's kind of, it's not like a holiday. So it's that kind of thing as well. I think that's been really, really difficult. It's like trying to juggle everything. Because it's been pretty manic.
Sure.
But,
I Dowsett.
Well, I mean, I was thinking the same. In case you were going to ask me, how have I self-improved? I was going to say something like that. I've got far more patience with children than I had before. Because you have to.
All of Guy's challenges and personal growth is linked to parenting.
But yeah, I mean, it goes to what Ben said, really. I miss sharing experiences with people. I mean, I have my partner and see you guys a bit, but with strangers, I like being in a room with lots of strangers doing interesting things. That doesn't happen.
When was the last shoot you were on? When was the last shoot you were physically on?
December, I think.
Film shoot.
An ad, yeah.
But not a commercial, an actual film, like a short or a feature or a doc.
That was
a year ago.
Yeah.
It was tweeting.
No, but that was an ad. That was a commercial. It's just it. So it's been a year since he was last on a film set.
Yeah,
that commercial doesn't have any artistic merit, so it doesn't.
None, Glenn. I'm raising it. All
you haven't seen it yet. It might be really good.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it, Guy.
We
got another question.
There's a couple of things in the chat.
Ads, what we got?
Rachel.
Digital portfolios.
What's the question?
Do you have any advice regarding putting together a digital portfolio?
Advice for putting together digital portfolios, I guess, CV, showcases of your work. What do you? I know that you've updated your website very recently, and you've done a bit of that. And kind of, how important, guys, is a website as a freelancer for marketing yourself?
Very.
Steve's going with very. Glen's giving it the mask eyeballs.
I do have a website. I think it's useful as I point people in. I've never looked how many hits I get and stuff like that, but I use it as, I think it's good to have it to point in people's direction. I've got mine are basically just like hubs of clusters of videos of stuff I've done, location posts and Foley and stuff like that. So at least you've got something to push something their way. I don't know how much work it brings me, but definitely having some sort of presence. I've kind of got some bits and bobs through Instagram. I've definitely got a few jobs through LinkedIn, but I think that's locality. I think for like corporate and documentary stuff that isn't, it's shooting around the country and not necessarily London centric. I think, having sort of a localized link, saying you are from a specific place can sort of be beneficial sometimes with stuff shooting outside of London. So but I don't know about a portfolio. But yeah, I've got stuff on there, but it's not, you know, I don't really update it or do.
Glenn, do you split yours? Do you split your kind of sections into narrative and commercial, or
Nah, it's just location, post, and then I, you know, sometimes I specialize in Foley sometimes. So I've got a Foley specific section,
Sure.
so it's just those 3 lumps. So I can divvy it up, so it's not all in together. So I can, you know, here's my location stuff, here's my post stuff, and but no, not really. No, I kind of keep it all together, really.
Yeah. Ben,
I think it shows like a broader range of what you do. Maybe if it's all together, it's like, I don't know. But some people do, like, you know, I don't have a CV, and like if someone asks for one, I just point them to IMDb or something like that. But like, you know, people do like corporate commercial CVs that list everything that they've done. But it's like, I don't want to do that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that when I was on recruiting for our film last year for Patriot, which didn't go into production, you know, most of the recruiting, I'd say, as a director for heads of department, but even just for other roles, my first port of call was always just people's IMDb page. I think I'd almost go on IMDb page and look for credits before I actually went into the creative, and I went into actually look specifically at reels and whatnot.
Dan, that's frustrating for any students listening, obviously, because if they're nowhere near IMDb. You'd be surprised, Ben. It's the way. I mean, when I started out and I was at uni and I started doing ADing, and like, this is going to sound terrible, but like when I got my first AD job, I hadn't actually done anything, and I just got told. Someone told me, just make up a whole load of stuff. And I did. I made up a whole load of credits. I made up a fake CV, and I made up a whole load of credits. They were sort of pseudo credits. They were films I'd worked on with mates and stuff that I kind of dressed up as being a bit more professional. And my first ADing on a feature, I got because I had credits for shorts that I'd got people to put up on IMDb that were just student shorts that I made look to be like professional things. And I'm telling you now, I know I got that job because they went on my IMDb and went, oh, he's got 1 or 2. Oh, he's done it once. That'll do. You're a genius. I'll be honest with you.
What'd you say?
I said you're a genius then in that.
Well, I mean, but
once you're on IMDb, you can get. I mean, so you know, there's lots of, you know, I think at the bottom of lots of IMDb lists, it's stuff, you know, graduation films and stuff like that. And then once you're on there, if people aren't adding your stuff, you can add to. As I'm going by Louise Yard tonight, just to test years and years ago, just to test. You know, how IMDb, you know, sort of collates information. I got Louise, my wife. I put her in the costume department of Norbit, the Eddie Murphy film. She's still in it.
Amazing.
So that's how fallible it is. So my wife could go and work on Eddie Murphy's next.
That is such a Glen Yard
next Norbit film.
Go on, Steve.
No, I just wanted to go back to Rachel's question because I think we may have gone a bit off tangent. Because she says, do you have any advice for putting together a digital portfolio for entry-level work or work experience?
I was going to say that the same advice I got when I sought a few career development people probably 10 years ago about CVs. And that's the same thing I've applied to digital portfolios. Now, when I first did websites years ago, I put everything on there, you know, everything I've ever done, just because you want to show everything. But now, I mean, my show reels are a minute.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice.
Keep
your batting average. Keep your batting average strong.
Really, really concise. Your best work are like just nailed down, nice and simple. And if they like what they see from your best work, then you can show them whatever else you've got in the back of the room.
And also, just to add to that, I think it's great having that, but then the most important thing is to get it to the right person and really do the research in order to get the right pair of eyes on it, because otherwise, or ears in this case, because otherwise you can just be, you know, spending loads of time creating something, crafting something, and then it's just not getting past the first gatekeeper who doesn't know if you're any good anyway, you know?
Yeah, no, I was simply referring to what I would have on my website, i.e. a portfolio. But if you're looking for who you're going to specifically target, that's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's kind of all like, it's kind of, there's no point doing the work unless you kind of get it to the right person, and that's often something that entry level people are not kind of doing. Even here I have had it where I've had, dear sir, have you got any jobs? And I look at the bottom of who it's from, and it's actually one of my students. So they haven't done their research.
That's
amazing.
That hasn't happened for a while. It's not any of these lot. Okay, so but it's that thing of doing your research. That's the other side of it. Make sure your showreel is as good as it can be, but it's really worth the legwork and the kind of research time to make sure you get it to the right person.
Yeah.
Is social media worth the bother? Do we have to do that? Well,
It's
Glen,
more like-
you said LinkedIn got you work, did you?
Well, yeah, my LinkedIn page is very basic, but yeah, it was just a locality thing, and just I came up in a search kind of thing. I think Instagram, because I know it's visual, but I put like sound stuff in there. I do like little super cuts of Foley and things like that, and I've had like sort of I've got involved in sort of short films and bits and bobs because of that. And I know for DOPs, I know it's a different thing, but I know that commercial places and stuff, they do go through DOPs like Instagram. I know a big commercial DOP who does like big car commercials and stuff like that. He doesn't have an agent anymore. He uses his Instagram page and stuff like that because people come to him through that.
For visual professions, for photographers and
you
almost absolutely have to have Instagram. It's almost impossible to operate without it nowadays.
I think there's fun ways that you can use Instagram and sort of use for puts out. I think endless shots of kit and sort of behind the scenes shots of you looking sad holding a boom pole don't do you any favors really. But there's nothing wrong with sort of promoting the stuff that you're involved with. If the short films just come out and it's got a good poster and you're involved in it somehow, can't hurt to and people are more likely to flick through that on their phones than maybe taking a deep dive on you on the Norbit cast and crew list or whatever.
I think a balance of social media is good. I've got rid of most of mine, but I still have my Instagram, and I find I do use it. But I do find it's helpful for recruiting people in creative professions. I don't know. Instagram does say something about you if you're working in a creative sector. How you curate that and what you decide to feature and what you decide to show interest in.
I personally wish I could employ somebody about my nephew's age, about 19 or 20, to do it for me. To be honest with you, I don't really like doing it. So I would much rather somebody who's grown up with it and is completely au fait with it, second nature, to do it for me. That's just my personal view of it.
What about your nephew? Give him a job.
Yeah, well,
entry level, being Ben Cozens' social media manager.
It's not a bad shout.
What else have we got? Any more ads?
How can people get in touch with everyone?
Oh, okay. Should we? How can listeners and watchers get involved with us, with our panel? Should we? Yeah. Can we circulate your emails in the chat?
Can do. I mean, my stuff's on the website.
Yeah, mine too. Contact.
Yeah. Should we drop the websites into
if
you drop the websites?
Yeah.
If you just made a reference to, Short Sounds Film Festival and the contact email from the websites, then that would be good.
Yeah, for those that are interested in touching base with any of the guys here, feel free to email the Short Sounds contact mail.
Their websites.
And/or you can get in touch directly via the website links that we've dropped in the comment section. We've done Ben's Dustless Digital. I think we've done Steve's Bomo Audio. Your Bucket of Sounds, aren't you? Yeah, we've done that. We've done Guy's Bucket of Sounds.
Right.
Yeah, we've done a lot. Okay, so you can get in touch. And you've done mine as well. There you go. Fantastic. Although not relevant because it's a writing website. So I'm sure no one's going to be interested in that. But right, okay. Should we think about wrapping this up? I'm just going to throw out one. If we've got no more questions in the chat, I'm going to throw out how optimistic are we about the year ahead? I've seen Leeds and Reading have already announced this year's going to be a big one. So yeah, what are we thinking?
Well, the government says we'll be fine by June, right?
Sure, they do indeed.
Well, I think that what we're looking forward to is confidence, isn't it? Confidence for people to be a bit closer than what we are, and that's going to take time.
It would be nice to be closer to you.
It's going to take time. So, what was the question exactly?
Well, what is there? Yeah, is there anything specifically that you're confident that you're looking forward to?
Well, I miss theatre and live music the most. Yeah. That's the thing that I miss the most, and I can't see that really happening in the same way for this year. Can you?
Open question.
I've got like 3 gig tickets I booked for last year, and they keep getting pushed back 6 months. I get an email saying, "Oh, we're postponed."
It's like those meal reservations people made in October. Like, yeah, don't worry, you can still utilise that in October 2021.
Are my Michael Jackson tickets still valid?
Oh God! Oh, Glen. All right, then come on, Glen. Are you optimistic about the year ahead?
Yeah, sure. When do the soft plays reopen? No, fine. I think like lockdown 2, but stuff was still. I think sort of October, November. In terms of stuff I was doing was sort of getting back to normal and sort of becoming more regular. Sort of petered off around. I think like January and those kind of the early months are sometimes a bit slow anyway, so you can kind of pass that off a little bit as that. You can just pretend it's normal. But like the last month, I've been sort of chock-a-block with stuff, with bits and bobs. So
are you confident you're going to be able to do some film stuff this year? Like, I know
sure. Well, I don't. Yeah,
got some things on the go.
I've potentially got some sort of narrative stuff coming up in April. There's a company it's a company I work with that use virtual production with the big Mandalorian screens that are based in Bournemouth, and so there's some stuff coming up with that. I've already worked with them on some like commercial stuff where commercial companies are coming in to sort of check out the tech, and in terms of like, instead of moving 3 or 4 different locations in 3 or 4 or whatever a week, you can do those, testing out those 4 locations in one day kind of thing, and sort of seeing.
Yeah, I went to see. Well, I was with you, wasn't I? I went to see Treehouse in the Vic and saw incredible tech, and I'm sure that there's only going to be more confidence now for production at different levels.
Yeah. So they're doing lots of interesting things, and they're involved in sort of bigger stuff now, bigger TV series and film stuff. So maybe that for some things that maybe is the way forward. A good sort of stepping stone, isn't it? Instead of going out on those locations, they can kind of still do that stuff, but do it within
more
the
control
realms of that kind of thing. Trundling along, but positive that stuff's still ticking over, and company, every sort of corporate and commercial company, they need to keep going. I know companies that have come very close to sort of companies that do conferences and live events and stuff become very close to sort of folding, or just depends how big they are. And there's all these sort of events companies, there's quite a lot based in Bournemouth and Poole with all this kit that's just sat there. So I think that that's sort of a bit more interesting, because I think I was talking to someone at a local sort of events place, and they were saying that even when it all comes back, conferences and stuff like that are still going to have a virtual and a Zoom, a video meeting element. Sort of the seminars will be on there as well, whereas they once weren't.
Well, we were saying yesterday when we did the live launch of the festival, we said that we've been getting questions about whether or not we'll ever go back to a fully live event, and I said, well, obviously we're a film festival, so we need to get back in the cinema. But in terms of some of these events, then there's no reason why we won't do a split of things being online versus being in person going forwards. I think that's fundamentally changed forever. Steve?
In terms of quality, like the quality and sound and stuff like that, I think companies, Zoom and stuff like that, and the accessibility of it is a novelty, and I think commercial companies still want to show that they've got quality that kind of sets them apart from sort of homebrew stuff. So stuff with more budgets, they still want to differentiate. You know, brands still want to show that they've got, you know, there's a quality and a sheen to it. So they're not, you know, they won't just settle for, you know, live stream stuff and, you know, sort of wibbly wobbly audio and stuff like that. People still want to use that as like a, you know, this is better and this is.
Yeah, so do you think will there be a frenzy of that as we snap out of social restrictions?
Yeah, there will. You think? I don't know, but I know that, you know, so the companies I work with that have, you know, have kept, you know, developing stuff, and, you know, they all seem positive. You know, I think they need to stay positive, don't they? They want to stay positive because if they, you know, it's their companies, isn't it? So they need to kind of keep looking forward and be like, yeah, we can still, yeah. So I think it'll all, you know, crank up and yeah. I don't see why not, really. I don't think anything's going to disappear, really, totally. Or...
Yeah,
the live thing is a big thing.
Steve, optimism for the year ahead or not?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But when you know, thinking of the two hats that I wear, you know, the uni stuff, we want to get the students back in. You know, as soon as it's kind of safe to do so. We want. You know, it's been really tough all round to be teaching remotely. You know, it's just a very hard thing to get used to, and we're sort of doing the best, you know, best we can. But the thing is, that sort of opened up, working in this way has opened up some positives. So, like, you know, and also from a sound design point of view, this remote working has kind of made everything, I don't know, a bit more open, a bit more accessible. As I said earlier, I'm sort of quite used to working remotely from you know, clients abroad and stuff like that. But I think it's, if we can hang on to the good stuff, if we can work out what the good stuff is from it and hang on to it, then that would be, you know, that would be great. But I also think there's a lot of stuff in development that's coming our way, you know, that's had a really intensive development phase that should be really good, you know. Yeah. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. You know, I think the jobs will come back, you know, because, you know, we still need to watch stuff. We still need to be entertained. We need to go to the cinema. We need to be, you know, all of that stuff.
More content is needed now than ever before at the rate that people are consuming it.
Exactly, yeah. And you know, in a way, I mean, at the start of lockdown, I had iPlayer. Now I've got Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. So that's all got to be you know, sustained. People aren't.
Yeah, on top of the fact that like 50% of our time is spent on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
50% of internet time is spent on YouTube, which isn't even a streamer, but we're streaming video content off of it all the time.
Exactly, that's it. So
cool.
You know, I don't know if I'm optimistic necessarily for this year, but it's small steps. I think it's like, and it will come. So, you know.
Ben?
Yes, I think our hands are tied, aren't they? We're told what to do about all this. However, Steve has mentioned the fact that the media, it's constantly growing. We're constantly getting inundated. How many times do people say to you a day, have you seen such and such on Netflix or wherever? There will never stop this exponential growth of the media and the films and the TV shows and exclusive on Disney Plus, exclusive on Netflix. We're going to stay in work because there's tons of it. You just have to keep your head down and keep producing your best stuff so that you get more stuff, I would say. I'm super confident about it, and I've definitely funneled things back into remote work so that will always stay in place, because even if it opens up again, you can do that as well. It can't work the other way around. But yeah, I'm very happy about it.
You're a pretty steadfast guy at the best of times anyway, Ben Cozens. Things bounce off of you.
I have an annoyingly optimistic quote. Yeah.
Good. All right, wicked. Well, look, guys, this has been fabulous. hopefully people have had an equally fun Friday night hanging out with the 5 of us. Yeah, look, let's think about wrapping it up, because I'm sure we've rabbited on for long enough. And hopefully we can do the 3rd reunion back in an actual cinema space next year when the pandemic is a thing of the past.
That would be lovely.
Normal life has resumed.
And we'll all laugh about it.
Yeah.
We'll all laugh about it and pretend it never happened. Yeah. All right. Look, thank you very much, Glen Yard. Thank you very much, Ben Cozens. Thank you very much, Steve Rafter. Thank you very much, Guy Dowsett. We've still got tons of bits and pieces going on with the festival. We've got Score still screening over the weekend. We've got the live awards ceremony on Sunday evening, which Steve Rafter is going to be a part of. And yeah, all of the talks and all the films are available to watch online for free at any moment. So yeah.
Just before we go, I'd like to say, thanks for putting on the festival again this year, because you, Adam, and Matt and the whole team, you've kind of it would have been easier to not, I think. So, and it's really important that you've done it. I think it's great. It's so good one.
Steve, we had to do something. We had We had time on our hands. And it felt like a why the hell not moment. Yeah. And so far, so good. People seem to have got something out of it. I've had a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody else is having some fun. I know that we haven't pulled our hair out too much trying to get our head around the technology. But yes, it would be nice to watch some films in a cinema again. Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. Lovely to see you all. Have a lovely rest of the weekend. I'll see you on Sunday, Steve. Otherwise, I'll catch up with you guys when I catch up.
Cheers, guys. Good to see you all.